Hello once again, Tim. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. We'll remind my viewers that we're talking to Tim Lefebvre, the member of the Tedeschi Trucks band who played every song on David Bowie's final album, The Blackstar. So thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview for us. It means a lot to us and to our viewers.
Thank you so much for having me, Elena.
So we can get started with some of my main questions. You are described as a musical multilinguist, adept to jazz, fusion, electronica, and you're often the very first call for very many artists. Your CV is quite rich, but yet you pinched yourself when you were in a room with David Bowie. I'm wondering, what did he mean to you, and what was your relationship with him?
He obviously was a hero. I mean, to so many people, because he, you know, to me especially. You know, I grew up in the '80s, so like Let's Dance was a huge record to me. So like I knew a lot of that record. I knew some of his other stuff from before that. You know, I kind of went in and out of what records he had been doing, but you know, obviously you knew you were dealing with a musical icon, probably on the same level as like Mick Jagger or John Lennon. You know, so you knew exactly who you were dealing with on that front. But and at the same time, he was totally unassuming about it. He was just like, hey, you know, let's do a great record. You know, and so that kind of, you know, he was very disarming that way. So it was cool that we could just hang out in the studio and just be ourselves. You know, he made everybody very comfortable. You know, and that was one of the great parts about him is that we could hang out as people and not, you know, turn off all the star stuff. You know, and that's one of the great things about what he was to me. You know.
I'm very sorry about your loss. I know David Bowie did mean a lot to you as a person, as a friend, and you know, as a working companion. It turns out you were part of his final journey, you know, which is an eternally special album for many people and for himself, yes, of course, as well as the band. Did this experience lead to reassessing your own music and perhaps your life, and in what ways would it be?
Yeah, it actually did. It's been interesting because I feel like, you know, whatever I've been doing musically, like whatever. Like, because the record was sort of daring and avant-garde in a way. I feel like that some of the stuff I'm involved with now, we could take some chances and do some more interesting stuff, and because that's what David did, and that's what he believed in. So it's like that kind of gave me some new strength to just kind of pursue. I feel more brave. You know what I mean?
You said in your interviews that the tracks in Blackstar were demoed very well before you came into the process, and David Bowie wanted guys with chemistry to play on it. I was interested, what was your biggest ambition while recording Blackstar, the statement you wanted to make on this album, you know, as a bass player, and where did it show best?
I wasn't thinking too much about that at first. I wanted to just play the songs right, you know. But you know, as we got comfortable in the studio, and we got to know Tony Visconti and yes, David a little bit more, and I think they wanted us to be a little more adventurous. So you know, on things like Lazarus, we kind of as a band came up with the intros and outros, and you know, I kind of like that. That's one song, for instance, that was demoed pretty strictly, and so I took some liberties with the sound of what the bass was in that track, and also like what. And like I was just kind of like playing some stuff around it that sounded musical, you know. So I was just trying to fill up some space a little bit. You know, I was always trying to serve the song because I have some experience playing playing pop music. So like it's kind of the first thing you want to do is not bury the vocals with bass activity if you can help it. So that was kind of the main purpose. But I feel like I kind of
look up here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen. I've got drama, can't be stolen. Everybody knows me now.
Got to express myself the most on the Blackstar track. Because it's all stuff I felt very comfortable doing. That was structured a little bit more loosely in terms of what the bass was doing, so I kind of went for, you know, like kind of a Serge Gainsbourg-y thing in the middle of it, and then in the end of it, I was kind of doing like a D'Angelo-y, Pino Palladino kind of Sly Stone kind of vibe at the end of it with some eighth notes. So I felt, and I'm comfortable doing that stuff, so I felt like, you know, that's kind of where I got to express some stuff. you know.
In the villa of all men, in the villa of all men, stands a solitary candle. In the center of it all, in the center of it all, you're
As a bass player, you want to kind of serve the song. So that was kind of priority number one. But, you know, there was definitely moments, and also in Sue, actually, we, you know, Mark, Juliana, and I have done a lot of playing electronica together. And so, you know, in that song, we were able to kind of do our thing. We had originally demoed that like a little closer to what the Maria Schneider version was. The first, not demoed it, but we had done a couple takes that were like conservative. And, but the take you hear on the record was the one where they just said, yeah, just go crazy. So we kind of played the song down and then got a little more nuts with it and sonically and you know, just in terms of like what, just like basically it was a lot of it was the sonic stuff. And of course, Tony and David were cool enough to let us do our thing on that. You know, still blows my mind that's on that record, honestly.
We will go back to talking about some of the songs and, you know, your ideas about the songs, but Blackstar, you know, after David's passing has become, you know, a matter of exploration, and people are trying to look for new concepts in it, and it's full of allusions, you know. It could be a hidden planet, a cancer lesion, a collapsed star, a state of infinite value. There's very many explanations. I'm wondering how your understanding of the concept has changed now that you look back at it today.
I'm still just as dumbfounded as I was initially. I have no idea what that song's about. I mean, I think, you know, I love the lines. You know, some of the lines in there are really great. Like, you know, something happened on the day he died. Spirit rose a meter and stepped aside. Somebody took his place and bravely cried, I'm a Blackstar. I think that, I don't know what it means, but I love it. It's beautiful, you know.
something happened on the day he died. Spirit rose a meter and stepped aside. Somebody else took his place and bravely cried, I'm a black star, I'm a black star.
And then when you see the video, it's sort of, you know, I can't make heads or tails of it. I know that the director, Jonathan Renck, the British guy, you know, he tends to, he threw some imagery in there that's you know, has some occult stuff in it, and yeah, but I don't know if that means anything. I mean, as far as I know, David was not an occult worshiper. I'm sure he's laughing about people's meanings, you know, what they attach meanings to for the song, because he was a really funny guy. But I don't understand.
About David Bowie, probably,
yeah.
You know, it translates into different things for every single person. He was known for creating myths, stories, different worlds, and I was wondering how this ability translated into his personality. How did this show in the working process? He was able to recreate himself in almost every song, almost every album, every character.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I feel like there's stuff on this record that's reminiscent of, like, you know, his great past periods. You know, like the Dollar Days reminds me of like Ziggy Stardust or something off Hunky Dory. Well, more Ziggy Stardust. You know, like Space Oddity. That's, you know, like sonically kind of reminded me of that. And you know, like 'Tis a Pity She's a Whore reminds me of how he sounded in the '80s. So it's like, yeah. I mean, it just kind of all came out. That was kind of done more in post processing after we had done the record. I think they got those kind of sounds in afterwards. But yeah, it's a fascinating process. It was kind of mind blowing, you know.
Yes, I'm sure you were fortunate to be part of this fascinating process. I will try to clarify my question once again about something, you know, a lot of people are interested in. What I also meant to ask was, this person who had this ability to create this myths around him, right? This had to do with great sense of imagination. In his personality, in your daily routine, in your working process, what was he like? You know, what was a person who could do all these things like, you know, as a human?
You know, I was aware that he was, afterwards I was aware that he was working very hard in that time period. But, you know, while he was in the studio with us, he was really funny, engaging, total gentleman. You know, was there to work. Obviously, it was kind of a work environment for sure. But you know, it was also a very small group of people. It wasn't like a circus. It was like, you know, it was a couple guys from the studio from Magic Shop, like Kabir and his assistant, and then there was the engineer Kevin Keelan. There was Tony Visconti. There was David, and then the band. It was Mark, Jason, Donnie, and I, and sometimes Ben Monder, and then sometimes James Murphy. So it was a small group of people. So that made it easier to have conversations with him, and I know he was very political minded. He was. He always read a ton of books. I mean, he was a very smart guy, like far smarter than I was, and and it was pretty fun to get in insult contests with him. He'd make fun of my dumbness, not my dumbness, but it was funny. He was a really, really funny guy, so we had a good time with that.
Since he welcomed you into his close circle and you've had conversations with him, there's a lot of ideas on where David Bowie drew his inspiration from. Elvis Presley has this song, "When a Man Sees His Blackstar." He knows his time, and we knew that David Bowie was a huge Elvis Presley nut, but it's interesting, where else did he draw his final inspiration from when he worked on his final album?
Yeah, I don't really know much about, because the song forms, I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, like something like I Can't Give Everything Away was just kind of like, it's a reflection on his life. All the songs were sort of reflections on his life, and maybe there were songs about his death and maybe they weren't. I mean, I don't know. We didn't know, nobody, he's standing up there singing and being all lively and looked very spry in the studio with us. So we didn't know we didn't know he was sick. So, but the messages were obviously in there about that, so it was always hard to say. And I think it's always been like one of those things over the years where, like, so many people, what's this song about? And nobody really knows, because it's there's so many different, there's so many different influences and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess and he's brilliant because he leaves it up to his listeners to decide what the song's about.
Yes, of course. I was just wondering if you were listening to any particular music when you were creating the album. Having conversations about literature, I don't know, religion, politics, anything.
We were talking about politics. Obviously, politics is, that's always on the forefront of American minds. At least if you're not asleep, it's because it's very disturbing what's happening with our country, my country, America. So, there was a lot of talk about that. I'm trying to think of what music we were talking about. We talked about, we talked about some old jazz stuff. Like, I didn't really know this, but. In Suffragette City, there's a line in there called, it's totally crass, but it's like "Wham Bam, Thank You, Ma'am," and he said he got that from Charles Mingus. So, it's so funny. It's so I think he was a pretty big jazz fan. So we talked about jazz sometimes because he hired a jazz band. So we ended up talking about good amount of music. I told him how much of a fan I was of this band Fink from England, and he knew I was in Tedeschi Trucks band. So like he did a lot of research on us, as musicians. So like he knew what was going on with the bands we were in, and it was cool. He had done a lot of YouTubing of us. It was pretty fascinating. He was just as interested in us as we were with him. It was fascinating.
Yes, of course. Since you've mentioned politics, and I've also dug into that question, you were one of the few people, and in your Rolling Stones interview, I read that you described Blackstar as a political song with many layers. So I was interested what you meant by a political song about Blackstar, because there's, of course, very many different understandings of it. But what did you see as, being political in it?
I'm just guessing. That's kind of what I heard. I don't know. Honestly. Maybe I said that when that woman, I spoke to that woman like right after he had passed away. So I was kind of emotional and raw. So I don't even know what I meant when I said it was political, honestly, because I don't understand what that song is about at all. Honestly, I know that I love that line that I said to you before. I just it's just a fascinating song. I don't know. I can't. For the life of me, figured out what it's about. It was bandied about that it was political, but I don't know. I don't think it was. Like there was rumors that it would have something to do with ISIS, and that I don't think that was the case. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, and I think that's kind of the fun of it. It's like, what is this about? For people to wonder.
Girl Loves Me. You named it as one of your favorite songs, and your contribution is pretty great in it. You play bass as well as David's guitar, if I'm not mistaken, on the song. But to me, it is really one of the most opaque tracks on the album, you know, one of the hardest to understand in the concept. What else does it make it special for you?
I just love all his melodies in there, and like the nonsensical words, and you know, it's so imaginative. You know, it's great. Apparently, it's like based on Clockwork Orange language, right? That's something like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like this. The brilliance of that writing is amazing. And then just like, you know, how it's all this kind of dark, like, you know, kind of like gibberish almost, and then it turns into this beautiful melody in the chorus. You know. So it's kind of, to me, it's very moving, and the chords in it are very interesting, and like it's kind of like this. It's aggressive, and yet at the same time, it's very, very languid and kind of soft, which I you know, I have an affinity for that kind of stuff anyway. As weird as a song as it was, that's like vintage Bowie to me. It's like just amazing thing that comes out of nowhere. That he's never had a song that sounded like that before, and he never, you know, it's interesting, and I've never played a song like that before. You know, it's super cool.
Which song on the album you think is the swan song?
Yeah, probably Dollar Days, right? I would have to guess. And the last two songs on the record, yeah, I'd have to say are. I mean, obviously Lazarus is too, but you know, to me the saddest songs are Dollar Days and Can't Give Everything Away. You know.
There's a funny and interesting thing about I Can't Give Everything Away, the final song on the album. It seems to sample the harmonica solo from David Bowie's old song, which is called A New Career in a New Town, right?
Yeah, on Low. I know. I've heard that. I think that's why they compared it in the press to Low, because of the sonic, you know, because of the harmonica thing.
Yes. Do you think that was intentional? Did you know about all these little details? Were they thought ahead of?
I just know it showed up on the demo, and I know he had done it on Low before, but yeah, I didn't make heads or tails of it, you know, in terms of like if he was trying to remind people of that record or not. I don't know. Yeah, you know, now that I've gone back and listened to Low a few times, and yeah, I was like, oh wow, that's there. It's pretty cool.
You knew that David Bowie was ill, but you didn't know that he was ill to this point. And in interviews and with us, you've mentioned, you know, his energy, his humor, his generosity, but nobody ever understood about, you know, David's religious views. And it's interesting that he ever come across as spiritual in any way. There's a really interesting quote from David Bowie where he says he describes himself as almost an atheist. And he also said that he went through Nietzsche, Satanism, Christianity, pottery, and ended up singing. So it's interesting.
Yeah. We didn't really get into much of that. I don't remember any conversations about religion. I know we sort of were all kind of. Yeah, I don't know. That was one that I think we stayed away from, because yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't know what he was in the end. I mean, it seems like he knew about a lot of them, though. You know, he was very educated about each and every religion, for sure, you know.
Do you think that the shock from the unexpected passing of Bowie and the popularity of Blackstar could inspire new talent and more sincere, you know, more quality music, since it's affected you and inspired other artists also?
I hope so. I mean, you know, it's been in the top 10 for a long time now. Like, it's in the top on Amazon. It's like it's been in the top 10. I mean, I don't know if these things mean anything, but you know, I hope it makes other people brave enough to just go out and make your music, you know, as good as it can be and not compromise, because there's a lot of that going on. You know, the state. If you listen to the radio these days, it all sounds the same kind of. And I mean, and people who are young can say, well, you're just old and blah blah blah. But I was hoping that this record would have some kind of impact, you know, because David Bowie's obviously a legend, and so like for him it was very brave of him to put this record out, you know, the way it is, and to hire this group of musicians, because we're not pop musicians by any stretch. So, you know, I think we made a pop record. I don't. So in other words, like I'm just saying, like maybe the boundaries of what music can be, like, can just get loosened up a little bit. So, you know, maybe some real music can make an impact again, you know.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because Tony Visconti, he spoke to the world, you know, new artists, and he sort of sent out a message, you know, saying, you know, do what you fucking like, and don't try to imitate this, you know, sense of commercial.
Right. I mean, that's what David Bowie would want. That's exactly what they did. You know, that's what they did since 1967 or something. You know, it's like, you know, just got to have some balls and do what you want to do, or, you know, whatever the word is. You know, it's just I'm just hoping it makes for braver music, you know.
What message would you like to leave to the grieving fans and to the musicians?
I just, you know, I think David Bowie was a blessing to us all, and I wish. I know so many people would, you know, I feel like I'm completely lucky that I got to know him for the short time I did, and that, you know, to actually contribute to his record was, you know, insane to me. And it's just, you know, it's never ever gonna, it's always gonna occupy a special place in my heart, you know. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm still, you know, still blown away by it all. The reaction to the record, like, you know, his death, it's just crazy. You know, it's just so much, but it's so great at the same time. It makes, you know, it makes everything feel real. So I think that's really kind of valuable, you know, to have that feeling, you know.
Give some tips to the musicians, you know, on how to try to be, you know, more brave, because it is difficult, you know, in this world where, you know, there's large competition and there really is this sense of commerciality.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to hang in there. I mean, that's you know, half the reason why I am where I am today is because I just hung in there. It's hard, you know, because there's a lot of times you're doing stuff you don't want to do, but in the end, you kind of just got to cross your fingers that it'll all come together for you, and that's part of being brave, you know, like, you know. And also, if you're your own artist, so, like, you know, you have to hang in there and try to make stuff happen for yourself, you know. And that's, you know, that's also probably something that David would, you know, you could get some inspiration from David from that, you know. It's just like, hang in there and do your music and don't compromise, you know.
According to Tony Visconti, David Bowie was planning to do one more album, one more record. Did you know anything about it, or were you ever offered to be part of it?
I had heard inklings of it, yeah. I mean, it was just a, you know, brief conversation about it, but yeah, he had said that he wanted to do another record. I mean, this is just what I heard from Donnie. So I don't know. I wasn't told by anybody besides Donnie, you know, so. But yeah, I mean, apparently there was interest about it. I didn't know anything beyond that, but that's what I heard.
So in the working process, there was no intention, you know, to create extra songs for the new album or to save some material for some other product other than Blackstar?
Well, there's definitely, we did more songs than that. We did probably 15 songs, you know, and you know, 4 of which wound up in the play, in the Lazarus play. And there's a couple in the can that, you know, that are there. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but they exist. That's all I know. You know, I don't really know what's ever going to happen to them, but I know that there's way more tracks that we did that. I mean, I don't think he was happy with some of the lyrics sometimes, and maybe the band's approach wasn't perfect for whatever it was. But there are some tracks that were, you know, I thought were pretty banging, and so we'll see what happens with them. You know, I don't know, but they're there. I can that I know. So.
Let us hope that we will get to hear them, as I know that David has created a big list of songs which he would like to be published after his death, and they are to be coming, you know, to the fans. And one final question, Tim. What are you going to miss most about David Bowie, and what do you think the world is going to miss most about David Bowie?
I mean, you know, unless they put out those new tracks, I mean, they're not going to hear any more music from him, you know. You know, it's another icon. It's like John Lennon. It's like, you know, another person who's gone, but we just assumed was around, you know, and it's hard, you know, because a lot of those people that we all thought were icons are going away. So it's, you know, it's hard for a lot of people. I think this one you could feel like was hit people pretty hard, you know. So, you know, that's what we're all adjusting to, I guess.
Thank you very much for your time. I really do hope that what we've talked about, you know, these vibes, you know, that have been left after David Bowie's passing are really going to translate into something great, whether it's in music or other creativity. So.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me, Elena. It was great.
I think it was great too. So good luck with your band, and we will be following a lot of your stories. We hope that, you know, we will also be able to talk to you again sometime, you know, in the future also about your music and more in more detail about everything else.
Cool. That would be fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So.
Thank you. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.